Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. It is finally prediction season. From now until the start of the 2018 season, we will be doing non-stop predictions and non-stop analysis for all the Power 5 teams. So I'm not going to delay it any further. We're going to kick things off with the SEC, and I find it only appropriate to start with the defending national champions. Alabama has a very, very favorable schedule this season and looks primed for another run to the college football playoff. The Crimson Tide returns 10 starters, 7 on offense and 3 on defense, and should be led by national championship hero Tua Tagovailoa. There's always that controversy of whether Jalen Hurts will start or Tua Tagovailoa will start. In my opinion, it's Tagovailoa's job to lose. He, in my opinion, looked way better than Hurts. Hurts had a horrible spring. Tagovailoa did not play in the spring due to injury, but I believe it is his job to lose, and I believe he will be the starter in Week 1 against Louisville here in Orlando. And this would be a very, very intriguing game if Lamar Jackson was still playing for the Cardinals. It would be a lot more fun to watch, a lot more interesting to see how the Cardinals offense would do against an Alabama defense that some are considering a little young, a little inexperienced, considering they only have 3 starters returning on that side of the ball. And the way I would clarify that is that Nick Saban is a very defensive-minded coach, and every year there's always a question of whether Alabama is going to have a quarterback problem, or they're going to have trouble on defense because they lost too many people to the NFL, and Alabama always ends up doing fine. So despite only having 3 starters on that side of the ball, I have complete faith in Nick Saban and what this Crimson Tide defense is going to do this season. But like I said, if Lamar Jackson was still here, I'd be very excited to watch this game, very intrigued by this, but Louisville should be led by Jawan Pass, the backup to Lamar Jackson. And after only throwing 33 passes last year, he's going to have a very, very tough test as full-time starter to go up against this Crimson Tide defense. I'm going to predict a win here for the Crimson Tide to get that one down in Orlando. Bobby Petrino also 0-4 all-time against Nick Saban, or was 0-4 against Nick Saban during his time at Arkansas. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Then Alabama comes home to face Arkansas State, more than likely probably the Sun Belt champion, one of the tougher Sun Belt teams there, but shouldn't be a problem for the Crimson Tide. And then they travel for one of their first bigger tests, a road game at Ole Miss, their first conference game. And Ole Miss is not a team that anybody should sleep on this season. Of course, they still have that bowl ban for 2018, but Matt Luke did a great job getting them to technically bowl eligibility, getting them to 6-6 last year with that upset win over Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. They're led by Jordan Ta'amu and a very, very deep and talented wide receiver core. And that could be a problem for this Alabama defense if they are a little weaker, like some are expecting. But with it being on the road, that's always a cause for concern. Anytime you play on the road in the SEC, you don't want to overlook them. The last time Alabama came here and played Ole Miss jumped out to, I believe, a 24-3 lead, and Alabama came all the way back and won that game. Jordan Ta'amu, I think, will give this Alabama defense a little bit of a fit, but Alabama, in the end, is going to get the win against the Rebels on the road. And then they come home again to play Texas A&M. This will be a much more intriguing matchup now that Jimbo Fisher is head coach for the Aggies. That's going to be really fun to watch. The Aggies return 16 starters, 8 on offense, 8 on defense, led by Nick Starkel at quarterback. More experienced, I think, on the offensive line and the defensive line, especially. With this game being at Bryant-Denny Stadium, though, Jimbo Fisher still trying to learn how to play in the SEC, still trying to get his Aggies under control. I don't see them coming in and defeating the Crimson Tide here. So another win for Alabama, and they are 4-0. And then they play another Sun Belt team in Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, back at home. So, like I said, a very favorable schedule to start. By the time they get to October, they've already played 2 Sun Belt teams, a weaker Louisville team, an A&M team that doesn't have high expectations, and an Ole Miss team that we really don't know what to expect out of. They're very talented, but how motivated they're going to be when they know that they can't go to a bowl game. They come into October with a road game at Arkansas, another team that has a brand new head coach in Chad Morris, bringing a new style of offense. John Chavis coming over from Texas A&M as defensive coordinator, switching from that 3-4 scheme to a 4-3 scheme. So what's going to happen here in Fayetteville? Can Arkansas finally snap their streak against Alabama at home? Absolutely not. Alabama's going to get the win here. I just think that Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa is going to have a pretty big field day over this Arkansas defense. And despite Arkansas's defense being their strength this year, I do feel like Tua Tagovailoa is just going to have a pretty good field day over them. A lot of yards through the air and a lot of yards on the ground as well. So I'm very excited to check that out. Missouri at home. This is their homecoming game for the Crimson Tide. And this is going to be a really fun one to watch to see how Drew Lock comes into Bryant-Denny Stadium and shows up here. A lot of people are projecting him to be a high first-round draft pick in next year's NFL draft. So how is he going to react at one of the toughest places to play in the nation on Alabama's homecoming? I think Alabama's defense shows up for this one. They're about midway through the season at this point, so if there were any doubts or any concerns about what was going on there, they're going to be able to fix those. Nick Saban and his staff are going to be able to fix those. They're going to shut down Drew Lock and get a big homecoming win against Missouri and remain undefeated. And then they travel to Tennessee, where they place Jeremy Pruitt, the former Alabama defensive coordinator. And this will actually be a very interesting game as well. They got Keller Christ over at Tennessee, the transfer from Stanford. There were major concerns of who was going to be their starter at quarterback a couple months ago, but after his transfer, it kind of cleared up any doubts. And he's actually a very, very solid quarterback, and that's exactly what Tennessee needs right now, is to have a leader on offense. And then obviously with Jeremy Pruitt, I feel like he can get that Tennessee defense in line and hopefully maybe get them to bowl eligibility. But in year one, with a somewhat weak team, especially a team that I believe went 4-8 last year, I do not see them winning against the Crimson Tide, even with it being at home. So another win there. A bye week going into LSU, as always, just like LSU will get their bye week going into the Alabama game. This one being at Death Valley, and as we all know, it's extremely difficult to play at Death Valley on the road at night. So it's obviously it's going to be a lot of fun, a great environment. Last time Alabama visited LSU, it was only a 10-0 game. Alabama only won 10-0. And I could see this being a very big defensive battle once again. LSU's defense is going to be their strength this year. Their offense, not so much. Sure, they got Joe Burrow coming in at quarterback, but the defense is by far going to be the strength. They're very weak on the offensive side of the ball. And I could very well see this being a defensive battle because I think LSU is going to be able to hold Tua Tagovailoa. I think it's going to be the toughest environment he has played in. Besides the national championship, as a true road game, this will be the toughest environment he has played in. And I think they're going to be able to rattle him a little bit, slow him down in that Alabama offense. And Alabama will get the win here, but it will be low scoring despite LSU perhaps having a down year. So another win for Alabama. And I'll go ahead and mark down another win for the Citadel here. No worries there. Mississippi State on November 10th. Last time Mississippi State visited Alabama, it was a 51-3 win for the Crimson Tide. That will not be the case this year. Will not even be close to a blowout. Now, Alabama will get the win. I'll go ahead and say that now. Mississippi State is a dangerous team. They have new coach in Joe Moorhead, Dan Mullen leaving to take the Florida job. But Mississippi State, 17 returning starters, 9 on offense, 8 on defense. That defensive line is not getting a lot of attention, but they are going to be very, very dangerous this year. So if they can kind of break through that Alabama offensive line and rattle Tua Tagovailoa a little bit, they can hang in this game. And of course, they have Nick Fitzgerald, assuming he can stay healthy, a very, very solid dual threat quarterback there. With Joe Moorhead coming over as offensive coordinator from Penn State, he knows how to coach an offense, and he's got a lot of talent on that side of the ball. So Mississippi State could very well challenge Auburn for that second place spot in the West and could give Alabama a little bit of a test here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. If this game had been in Starkville, I might be tempted to pick the Bulldogs last year. Remember, they only lost 31-24 in the last seconds last year when Alabama and Mississippi State played. I consider this game to be fairly close, but Alabama in the end is going to get the win here. Then sitting at 11-0, Alabama comes into the Iron Bowl to face Auburn. And I think by far this is going to be the toughest test for Alabama on this schedule. Like I said at the beginning, it's a very favorable schedule for Alabama, looking to go into another college football playoff berth. But Auburn is going to be the roadblock, the team that's probably going to give them the toughest test, and could very well this game decide who will win the SEC West, much like it did last year. The winner of that was going to win the SEC West, and Auburn got the best of Alabama, made the SEC championship, but fell just short to Georgia. And that could very well happen again this year. I believe Alabama is going to be out for revenge. They lost on the road last year. It was a horrible offensive performance. Auburn just pretty much annihilated Alabama. It was an Alabama team that we had not seen before, really, over these past couple of years, showing their dominance. So, going into this Iron Bowl, I believe they're going to be out for revenge. I think Tua Tagovailoa, with the home crowd on the side, is going to have a pretty big game against a very, very solid Auburn defense, especially along that defensive line. So this is by far not going to be an easy test or easy game for Alabama. Like I said, I think it's going to be the toughest. But I think they do get the win at home in the regular season finale to cap off a 12-0 season, which will give them a berth in the SEC championship, more than likely against Georgia. And that game could also be against a 12-0 Georgia Bulldogs team, a rematch of the national championship from last year. Of course, we'll have to wait and see my Georgia predictions on that. But I do believe Alabama will go 12-0 due to a very favorable schedule and a very potent offense. Like I said, if Jalen Hurts is the starter, or if he was the starter, I would be very hesitant to pick on some of these games. I would predict them to maybe lose one or two. But Tua Tagovailoa, I think, is going to be the big reason of Alabama's success this year. Some people say he's overrated. Some people will say he's getting too much hype. I'm buying into the hype after what I saw in that national championship game, after I saw some of the stuff he did and some of the garbage time and some of their blowout wins of last year. I think he's going to be one of the main reasons of Alabama's success this year. And I also believe that the young defense with only 3 returning starters will continue to get stronger as this season progresses. So like I said, a very favorable schedule and a very strong offense contributes to an Alabama Crimson Tide 12-0 season and another potential berth in the college football playoff. Thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.